Yeah, 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 yeah. Look. Never switch on the homies in the day ones. They didn't wanna open doors, so we made some. Take a bow on these haters like I'm Trey Young. That direct deposit hitting like a bass drum. Incoming, coming. Keep it incoming, coming.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Bottle Rocket. I'm Elena here with Maeve and Jerry. Hi guys, how are you?
Hey.
Okay.
Are you happy with the trades?
Well, we should go over them. You want to pick one? You want to start off with the Rangers? We were hearing, once they went down the tubes that they're going to have to do something, and then they came out with this crazy letter, Chris Drury letter, about how the team is now going into another stage. It was basically a white flag of surrender on the season, and that's right. The secret word this time was retool. Although we have been fooling around with it, I called it a rebuild, a rehab, whatever you want to put on it, and they're going to rebuild the team. So the whole deal was, the trade deadline's coming up. Who are they going to deal? And the game against Toronto, they benched Trocheck, and because he was going to be traded. But you know what they say, it takes two to tango. You can't trade with the air, no matter how, because air has nothing to give you back but air, and you already had that already. So they were sort of embarrassed, if a team can get any more embarrassed than the Rangers. If you want to see how embarrassed, all you got to do is look at Chris Kreider's latest stats. But so they couldn't trade the guy, or there was nobody around who wanted to go for their deal. So now he's back with the team. I said that's a good news. I just wrote a piece for today for the Hockey News. Good news and bad news. And in the case of Trocheck, the good news is that he's still a Ranger, because he's basically the most popular Ranger. If anybody can be popular, he's a good hockey player. He's not great, but and there's something likable about him, as opposed to JT Miller. So that good news is that he's still with them. They could watch the guy they like the most. The bad news is they couldn't make a deal. They took the guy out of the lineup to make a deal. They couldn't. In other words, they got nothing. They don't have anything that other teams find appetizing, which is the square root of pathetic. So that's the one that I've been closest to. I'll let you guys pick yours.
What do you think the Rangers' future is going to look like? Do you think they'll make major moves in summer? Rangers.
Make a major move. You have to have a major person to make a major move. And they just that's why it's so embarrassing. They picked their best possible trade get using their best guy, because they're not going to trade JT Miller. Nobody wants JT Miller anyhow. So I think, well, you can never tell. You can never tell what the hell is going to happen. Who knew that nobody would go for the guy they want to trade? They're a mystery team now. They're just they're out the window. I mean, and to make it even better or worse, depending on how you look at it, it was another one, good news, bad news. So they beat the Maple Leafs at home, okay? So the good news is that these guys are still trying to win hockey games. That's nice, A lot of people went to the game, not a full house anymore, and they entertained their people. The bad news is that where the hell were these guys when it mattered, right? They were nowhere. So it's very. I don't know what the hell they're going to do. That's the thing. It's an absolute mystery. I mean, you know, with the Devils, you know a little bit. You know, at the Islanders have a shot at the playoffs. I think it's going to be much tougher for them. I worry about the Islanders. Besides, that's my team, but I always worry about them. So I think that the Ranger thing, and you know, you obviously, who knows what's going to be in Vancouver? I'd like to hear what T-Bag says about that.
Well, surprising the Brendan Hoffman era is over in New York. I mean, so they traded basically a first rounder for a second rounder with this Battaglia kid to Calgary. So I don't know. Maybe he'll get a better shot with the Flames than he ever did with the Rangers. I mean, he was up and down and in and out of the lineup. So we'll see. But another one of these first rounders who doesn't pan out. That's the thing. Being a first round pick doesn't guarantee success in the NHL. There's so many first rounders that never play a game in the NHL. So Elena and I are going to do a deep dive into the NHL draft right from the beginning. The very first draft pick was Gary Monahan in the what is now the NHL draft. So I remember Gary Monahan playing for the Canucks. And as for the Canucks trade deadline, I was a little disappointed. I thought they'd get rid of more, but the players they did trade, they got nothing but draft picks. So they're just loading up on draft picks. They've got 16 draft picks in the next 2 years, including 2 first rounders this year. So I think they can rebuild fairly quickly if they do it right. And sorry to see Connor Garland go. I always liked him as a player, and Tyler Myers was a true professional. He goes to Dallas, where he's going to actually get a chance to win the cup. So I'm happy for him. And the other trade they made was David Camp. Yeah, we got a 7th round pick or 6th round pick for David Camp, which was a nothing trade.
But getting back to the Ranger thing, and the retooling, they obviously have to go with younger players, because we've seen already that JT Miller is old, and Trocheck is getting old, and a couple of others. So they had what they thought was a core of young guys, which they used against Toronto. Gabe Perreault is their number one young guy according to all the ratings, but he didn't do anything much all season. And my thing with Brendan Nachman is that he may find himself out west. He may. He does, because I don't think they treated this guy well. I don't think they handled. I don't think they coached him well. But he could be a sleeper. He could be. We'll see.
Yeah, as for the Leafs, I'm honestly heartbroken. I mean, we didn't start off that badly. We got a decent deal for Wah. Colorado gave us first round pick in 2027 and a conditional 5th round pick in 2026. So essentially, we got that first round pick back, but after that, it kind of went downhill. Bobby McMahon, I mean, yeah, his contract was running out. And then Scott Laughton, that one really upset me. Oh my God. We only got a 3rd round pick from LA for Scotty, which could become a 2nd round pick. And for Bobby McMahon, we got a 2nd round pick in 2027 and a 4th round pick in 2026. So yeah, honestly, that's heartbreaking.
McMahon was one of the bright spots for the Leafs this year. And so, he was on the last year of a contract. He's 29 years old, and he's just kind of came out of the woodwork and proved himself to be an effective player. And the one thing he's got is speed, man. That guy's probably up there with McDavid in speed wise. And so I was really surprised that they traded him, because I thought, he's going to want to raise, but not out of this world, not like some of these guys. He's not going to want $10 or $11 million. So, I'm really surprised the Leafs couldn't find a way to sign him.
I mean, both of them were good players, honestly. They were among the few that were actually producing. And yet we're stuck with Riley. I didn't really expect them to move him until the summer. He's on a non-movable contract, but I was still kind of hoping, fingers crossed, that maybe something would happen. It didn't. Instead, we lost two good players. So yeah, it feels like dark times ahead. I honestly don't know where this team is going right now. And look, Brad Treliving has to take responsibility. So far, the decisions haven't worked. He struggled in Calgary, and now it feels like the same thing is happening with the Leafs.
What about the guy above him, the GM and the coach? The guy running Maple Leaf Sports. What's his name? I forgot. He's forgettable. He's forgettable. But look, I mean, the franchise now is in the worst shape, I would say, in the last decade, from what I'm seeing. And they're sinking. They're not going up. Nothing. I mean, how many more good seasons are going to get out of Tavares? He's giving them whatever he can give them. That's not enough. And you have to wonder about the captain, really, whether he wants to stay there or whether they want him. I mean, whether they can get what they can get for somebody like him. I mean, the Rangers would love to have a real superstar, but that's a bad scene there. Very bad.
Yeah, we have Matthews for a couple more years. His contract expires in 2028. Around that time, McDavid could become a free agent, so maybe we'll get McDavid.
Yeah, but he's going to be too old then by that time. Well, maybe. Well, he's if they don't win the cup this year or next year, he's out of there. That's obvious. That's why he signed for a short term. But we should look at the bright side. Look at Minnesota. Look at Colorado. Look at Dallas.
Yeah, Colorado is really stacking up. They're adding a lot of value, and it looks like they're really going for it.
Good for them, but you can just have so many stars. And I was a kid during the World War II. They had one of the big studios. I think it was Paramount. They had a thing called as Thousands Cheer, and they got all the stars in the studio, to do a bit, but it doesn't work that way. But we'll see. There's always room for a sleeper. I find it very sad that the Florida looks like they're gonna not make it. Probably not make it. But they had their fun.
Colorado, I was surprised, traded for Nazem Kadri. Now they're going to have Kadri as their third line center. So, one thing you got to have to win the cup is you got to be strong down the middle. That's why I like Vegas, because they got Jack Eichel and I can't remember the other, but they're right through their fourth line center. They're big and they're strong. I think the smallest guy is 6 feet and 195 or something. So, I'm still picking Vegas to win the cup. I think, just they didn't pick up a defenseman, an offensive defenseman. I thought they'd go for John Carlson maybe, but he ended up going elsewhere. And so now they're, they don't have Peter Angelo this year, which is a glaring hole in their defense core. So, but I still think they have enough to make it to the final. And if it's a 7-game series between them and Colorado, I think it'll go 7 and probably into overtime.
Who's in goal for them?
Well, I think it's been kind of a revolving door. Like Aiden Hill, but he's injured, and then they got Carter Hart and third guy. I can't remember, but they're not strong in goal, but they're not weak either. So I think it's the Chris Osgood equivalent. They'll win in spite of their goaltending rather than because of it.
It was so heartbreaking to see Ovi get upset over John Carlton going to the Anaheim Ducks. He grew up with him. They've been together for years in Washington.
Yeah, 17 years. And the thing is that Carlson could just come back this summer and sign as a free agent. So that's the rumor, and he's gonna take his shot with the Ducks and then come right back. So they gain a player, they lose a player for a few months, and then he might just come right back. So
True. Hopefully that happens with McMahon as well for us, or Scotty Lawton.
yeah, well, yeah. Scotty Lawton was another one I was surprised. Like they didn't touch their core at all. I thought they would make some big splash and grab a bunch of draft picks because the cupboard is pretty bare in the drafts. Like they got their first rounder back this year, and they might have another one if they finish in the bottom five. But if they finish 25th or better, they lose that draft pick.
Well, we gave away a first-round pick and Grubenkin for Scott Lawton, and we basically got a third-line player instead. So that's a terrible, terrible deal.
I'm wondering about with the Maple Leafs and the Rangers as well. Normally, every game's a sellout. Well, people are not going to Ranger games now. It's pretty, writers are saying there are 19,000 people supposedly there, and 10,000 are imitation people. I'm just wondering whether Maple Leaf fans are just going to fill the place no matter what's happening.
I mean, it's all corporate. A lot of seats are already bought by corporate. So it only affects the real fans who sit up in the nosebleeds. That's the heartbreaking part. Management still sells the tickets, the arena is still full, so from their perspective, everything is fine. It sometimes feels like they don't really care if the team wins or loses.
Same thing with the Rangers. The management knows there's enough corporate in the New York area. So that's the answer.
Yeah, that's the thing is the NHL, for all its TV contracts, they're still very much a fan-driven league, and so if there's butts in the seats, they they don't really care whether their team wins or loses. That's why you need somebody in the upper hierarchy there who cares about winning and losing, rather than having corporate suits sitting in the best seats. That kind of drives me nuts, because back in the day, back in the 70s, you could get a ticket for $15-20, and the working guy could afford that. I can't afford to go to a Canucks game. It would be like a $800 day for me, to bring my wife and me to a Canucks game. The parking is like $60. And so
Is that
it's
right?
it's crazy.
Yes.
Yes.
You have to pay to park?
Yes, you have to pay to park, and it's like it's extravagant. I mean, man, it's like I say, it's geared toward the corporate people who make $500,000 or more every year, and the working man can't afford season tickets. Like, they have these packages where you can buy like 10 games, and it's supposed to be such a deal, but man, if I bought one of those, I'd be bankrupt. It's crazy, and so in the NFL, all 32 teams could play in front of empty stadiums, and they'd still make money because of the TV contract.
Not to get too nostalgic about it, but when I started going to the games at the Madison Square Garden, my father, we were poor, but he wanted to see hockey. So we could go on a Sunday afternoon and not watch the NHL, but watch a doubleheader. That was just as much fun, even sometimes more exciting than seeing an NHL game. And we had a Met League in New York. It was 4 teams, guys who you could say some of them were beer league graduates. Others were right out of college, good players who had gone to college. It was a very good mix. It's called the Metropolitan Hockey League. Game started at 1:30. So for half a buck, my father gets in to the game, and I'm, of course, a quarter for me to go, half a buck and a quarter. So we see a Met League game, which are always fun. They were always fun to watch. Then 3:30, second half of the doubleheader is the Rovers. That's the Rovers with the Ranger farm team in the Eastern Amateur Hockey League. This is great hockey. First of all, I didn't even know what the hell NHL hockey looked like because there was no television then. So, the Rangers were more a mystery than anything else. So we had from 1:30 until the end of the second game, we had all the hockey we wanted. So of course, a grand total, father and son, of $75, and that's what I grew up with. Now the Ranger ticket was not a tough ticket. It wasn't a high ticket then, but the one NHL team that I know of that can't afford what the Leafs and what the Rangers and some of the other highfalutin teams, Maple Leafs, whatever, and that's the New York Islanders. They're playing in a beautiful building, one of maybe the best building in the league, but they have to win, or they have to be competitive. Otherwise, it's half empty because there's tremendous competition. And fortunately for them, with the new GM, very, very good. Everything about the franchise has been good, and they're playing over their head. They're playing over their head. They missed their best scorer from the beginning of the season. His name will come to me, and they've had injuries all over the place. They haven't had their backup goalie since the beginning of the season. So they haven't had Varlamov. They had to bring in this guy Vidic, and they've had some serious injuries. Lost Romanov for almost the whole season, and they're right in the mix. It's a very fun team to root for. Let me tell you.
Well, with Schaefer coming on the way he has, it's just he alone is worth the price of admission.
Well, he's a genuine miracle. I mean, the kid isn't yet 20 years old, and he's carrying the team. Let's face it, he's carrying the team. But there's no law against that, and his story is so amazing. And guess what? You want to know something? He's just a great kid, just a nice kid. Everything about him is nice. And he plays good, plays good hockey. But it's going to be tough for them to make it. I hope they do, of course. But I have a doctor friend, and ear, eyes, and throat. He's a great fan, Dr. April, and he and his son is also a big fan. And I'm telling them the same story every year. The Islanders are a team that walk the tightrope. When they win, you don't know how the hell they won the game, or when they come from behind, you don't know how the hell they did it. But there's something, that's there that allows them to stay. And of course, I think Patrick Roy is a pretty damn good coach.
Well, better than Berube. I think Berube killed the team's spirit. That's what it looks like.
I don't think it's so much Berube because I think there's something in the locker room.
It's collectively GM and Berube.
Yeah,
I'm not working out on you. I read a Berube quote after the recent game with the Rangers that as a fan, I did not like how he said something about, well, we're not going to win if we keep doing this, we keep doing it. But crying out loud, it's almost 3/4 way through the season. Can't you fix it? Well, obviously you can't. The dog. Somebody's coming, so don't worry about the dog. He's not going to eat me. So I can't say. And I'm sure there are going to be some good coaches around, but that may not be the answer either. We'll have to see.
Berube said, "Don't worry, it's gonna look better in the playoffs." I mean, we had to make the playoffs in order to get better.
I didn't hear that stupid comment.
Maeve, I think you were referring to Keith Kelly.
Yeah, that's the guy. He's the boss man.
I actually met him a few days ago at a conference for the Canadian soccer team. Someone asked him about the Leafs during the press conference, and some people started booing because the event was about soccer, not hockey. So he didn't want to address the Leafs. I actually spoke to him briefly as well, but it didn't feel appropriate to ask about hockey since the whole event was about soccer. Here was a completely useless piece of information for you guys.
He was the guy I was telling you about. I didn't know anything about him. I don't know why. See, at least when they had Shanahan, they had a genuine hockey guy. But who knows what this guy, pull up a chair, say hello to T-Bag and Elena, and
Hello.
Hi, how are you, Neil?
Hey,
Good.
Ariel.
your reaction to the what the Rangers did in the last 24 hours.
It's like the Brendan Othman swap was interesting because they, it's a swap with another prospect that you don't really know if he's good or not. Like at the NHL level, they gave Othman a couple of opportunities and he just didn't really show like what he did in the minors. So we figured like just get rid of him basically. And I mean, other than that, there hasn't been anything really that big. I mean, I thought they're gonna trade Trocheck for sure, because he said the whole comment about him wanting to win a Stanley Cup. So I thought it was pretty obvious that they're gonna trade him or he would want to trade, but nothing happened in the end. So pretty interesting.
You think they'll ever be able to trade him if they can't trade him now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's still valuable. If you look at his face-off percentages and his killing when it comes to power plays, and he's really good.
Any trades that kind of shocked you this year? Like last year, Brad Marchand left Boston Bruins and joined Panthers. This year, there wasn't any shockers. It was kind of boring trades. I mean, I was a little bit not shocked, but upset with the Leafs moves. But overall, I didn't think anything was spectacular, right?
They traded someone, right?
Well, the Leafs, yes, we traded 3 people: Nick Waugh, Scotty Lawton, and McMahon.
Lawton's pretty good, no?
Oh, and so was Bobby McMahon, yes.
Good also.
We got really bad return on them. That's what's depressing.
I think I was surprised with the Islanders trade. It was just out of the blue. Getting rid of Drouin, first round pick, I think was also in there. For someone that's fairly old, I mean, he's already 34. Braden Shen, right?
Yeah.
And he's already fairly old. He's 34. They gave up Jonathan Drouin, a first round pick, which is a lot to give up. I feel like that's something you would give up for someone like on the Blues, like Kyrou or something like that, like someone more valuable. But I mean, he won a Stanley Cup, Braden Shen, and he's also the captain there. So I guess he has some sort of leadership value also, maybe that they saw.
The defense was not that good because you're counting on a 18, 19-year-old kid who's great, but you can't expect him. They lost one of their best defensemen for the entire season, the Russian guy.
Yeah.
It proves with all these rumors is such nonsense. One of the guys who does a website called the El Montes is by far the best in the New York area as far as I'm concerned. Former almost intern of his name is Stefan Rosner. He's great. And he did a thing on almost every possibility for the Islanders to get in the trade except the man in the moon. I mean, it was, and Shen was not there. So it shows you can never tell what's going to be, what's going on behind the scenes. I think it's a good move for the Islanders because, as I was telling them the Islanders can't afford to miss the playoffs. Well, they can afford if they make a good run for it, but they worry because they have to fill that place, and it's a big place, and they are filling it now. They're getting SRO crowds all the time, so we'll see. We'll see.
What do you guys think of the Nazem Kadri trade?
Yeah, I thought it was a good trade. Colorado was strong down the middle even beforehand, and so getting Kadri as your third line center, man, that sends a message to everybody that they're in for the win and they're going for it. And I was telling Maeve and Elena earlier, I'm still picking Vegas, but Colorado is just up the ante, definitely.
I think Tampa Bay has a good chance as well. They got Corey Perry.
Yes, that was a great trade.
That was a great
Getting
trade.
Corey Perry, yeah, because proven playoff performance.
That is a great one. I didn't see that either.
Yeah.
Corey Perry for a second round pick.
You guys didn't tip your hat to Minnesota for crying out loud. They got the Hughes kid, and they're playing great hockey.
Yes, they are, and they beat Colorado the last week, and convincingly. So it was, and in Colorado. So it definitely is an omen maybe for what's to come, because Minnesota's looking good.
They have so many guys. They have
Kaprizov and Quinn Hughes.
Their defense. Also, their goalie.
Right, the goalie is better than what Colorado has.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, they've got Gustafsson and Felstead, who's a rookie, but he's been amazing this year when he's been in. So they're strong in that. And Jonathan Eriksson Ek, they've got lots of firepower up to, what I like about Kaprizov is he signed the big contract, but he hasn't let down any, not like Elias Pettersson, who just fell off a cliff once he got the big money. So
don't overlook Tampa Bay. They got a wonderful coach. They're playing good hockey, and they got a younger goalie than the other Florida team, and I think that's gonna be a major asset for Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay's second in the East behind Carolina, and Buffalo's tied with them, so Buffalo could do some damage. They're exciting.
You never know. Yeah,
Buffalo's scary. They were like dead from the neck up at the beginning of the season, and now they don't like to lose anymore.
Yeah.
And they got that big guy who gets a lot of goals up there now.
Tage Thompson. I mean, it's about
Thompson.
It's about time for
Tage Thompson. Tage Thompson is a scary hockey player, man. He is huge, and he has such a quick release, and he finds those open areas. He's a lot like Brett Hull, but who can skate. It's just like it's amazing what he can do on the ice. Your focus just goes right to him whenever he's on the ice.
Yeah.
And you know who could be the coach of the year, and that's Lindy Ruff. They stuck with him, and you could call this guy a retread. You could call him anything you want, but look how I tell you something. Anytime I see Buffalo, as tonight's game, I see Buffalo's playing tonight, I automatically assume they're going to win. That's how different they are now.
They just woke up one day and chose violence. Yeah.
Yeah, they're exciting to watch, no doubt. And I just want to go back to Elias Pettersson. Just like I was watching the game last night. The Canucks actually won a game and in Chicago, but every time the Canucks got scored on, Pettersson was on the ice. It just, I don't know what's up with the guy. I don't know how somebody can go from being so good to being so bad who can't do anything. Like he's just kind of there, and man,
he had that year where he was really, really good. He had like 80-something points, I think. And then the year after that, he had like a big drought, and everyone just started to question him. And I think ever since like everyone started questioning his play, like is he good? Is he like, what is he worth? And then he signed that contract, like you said, he's just nothing. I mean, honestly, he's just there, like with all the money that they gave him, which sucks for the Canucks, but like he's just not doing anything. Brock Bezer's not doing a lot also. The whole team is just, they have a good lineup. They just, I don't know why they can't get
Who's the
their
coach
stuff together.
now?
Adam Foote, and I think he's destined for the trash pile because man, he has not done anything. He's completely miscoached the team. The system he's implemented is one that they're not suited for, and I just don't think, as an individual player coach, he's just not there. He's trying to implement his will on players who are not able to to perform on it. But yeah, Pettersson had 102 points in 22-23 and 23-24. He signed the contract. He had 89 points in 82 games, and he had 45 points in 64 games last year, and he's got 38 points in 54 games, and he's minus 18. So it's he's just, like I say, just falling off a cliff. And I don't understand, because when he first got drafted, the report on him was he didn't care about money. He was all about winning, and winning was the only thing he cared about. And now it's proven to be a fraud, because man, they say he's getting $11.6 million a year, and it's $140,000 a game, and it's just, I was hoping they could trade him to somebody, because it's just a disaster.
Yeah, then, but there is the connection. You get guys who, once they get the pot of gold, they're not the same. We have it in New York, with Fats LaFreniere. He got the contract, and it was right down.
Mhm.
And then,
Yeah.
like,
Um,
they beat the Leafs, and he has a good game. Like, that's a big deal now. It's too late.
yeah. A big knock on Alex McGillney later in his career was that whenever he was in a contract year, he'd have a great year, and then he'd sign a 2 or 3 year contract, and he'd be nothing for 2 years, and then have a great year in the last year. So that it seems to be a common phenomenon in the NHL. You're really taking a gamble paying these guys the big money. I mean, look, Crosby, look at him. He gets the big money, but it doesn't matter. He's not about the money. He's about winning. And those are the guys
Special guy.
Yeah.
Want
No
to tell
doubt.
you a story about how different times are now when I started watching, and I was a Maple Leaf fan. So the captain of the Maple Leafs was Sil Apps, okay? Hall of Famer. My first idol, actually. And one day, he goes into the office of the boss, Connie Smythe, and he hands Connie Smythe something. Smythe says, "What is this?" He says, "This is a check." He says, "What are you giving me the check for?" He said, "Well, I missed maybe 4 or 5 games, whatever. And since I wasn't worth anything to you, I want to give you this money as a refund on my not playing." Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Guy doing, of course, Smythe, being Smythe, did the right thing. He ripped it up, but because who knew who could dispute Sil Apps as one of the great role models of all NHL history. But he's
Yeah.
paying back, paying
Yeah.
the Maple Leafs. Unreal, but that's what he did. That's what he did.
There's a story about Steve Young, who was a great quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers back in the day. And he was, they were in training camp, and his roommate opened up a drawer, and he noticed that Steve Young's game checks from the previous year were still in his drawer. He hadn't cashed them, because back then NFL players got paid like anybody else. They got a check every 2 weeks, and so they go to the bank and they deposit it. And so his checks were still in a lot of them were still in the drawer. And the roommate asked him, "How come your checks are still in the drawer?" And he says, "I haven't earned them yet." So,
That's crazy.
so yeah, that I don't know if that story is true, but it is one that was online and I read somewhere. So yeah, crazy. These athletes who really do care about their performance, and you can see when you watch Elias Pettersson play, like it's just not there. The magic is gone. Like he doesn't. Oh, it just. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but it just drives me around the bend that because my best contract when I played, my best contract was $1,000 a month, and so and I got $100 for room and board. So these guys who are playing for millions of dollars, it really irks me, because I was happy to get that. I would have played for free, but they wanted to pay me. So, yeah, it's just the mindset of these professional athletes, kind of, because they don't live in the real world anymore. They don't understand what it's like to have to go to the grocery store, have to go to make repairs on your own house, and they just dole out money and people do things for them. So they get cars to pick them up. They don't have to drive if they don't want. It's just it's a different world, and I don't think that connection to the regular everyday fan is gone. Like it seems to be a disconnect there. It's just they're part of the elite now, and instead of the working class. Back when Mabe was talking about, those guys had to get jobs in the summer to supplement their income. They didn't make enough during the hockey season. So can you imagine an NHL player these days getting a job in the summer? I can't.
No way.
He will get it, cashing his checks. You just delivered the quote of the month or the year that says it all, Jerry, and that is, my father would say, you just said a mouthful, and you said it. That's what I was thinking of. That they don't live in the real world. And I'll tell you where it hit home for me. When I was covering the Rangers for TV, I didn't do all the road games, but they had a road game in Ottawa, and I was told I was going to be on this. And they had a guy who took care of tickets and everything. But the whole thing was, they had their own plane. The Rangers have their own plane. Other teams do, but the plane is like a 5-star hotel. They stay at 5-star hotels. They can do anything they want. Everything is done for them. Everything is done for them. And, there's some guys who obviously appreciate it, but there are a lot of guys who don't appreciate it. But it's all luxury. What do they have to do? How many games a week? 3 or 4 games a week? How many minutes do they actually play? Max 24, 25 minutes. That's a great life. That's what.
Yeah, it would be if we could all do it, but yeah, there's only that, and you got to remember these NHL players. They're the top 0.0001% of hockey players. So especially the guys who get the big money. I mean, it's like that boxing documentary we watched. They said the guys who get the big money are like the very top 1%. The 99% are just basically hacks who fight for fight for a paycheck, a week to week paycheck. So yeah, it's just it's hard to fathom what kind of life they live, and I just it's just, I wish the money could be taken out of it, and just play for pride, and I'm living in a utopia, but it would seem to me it would be so much better if they just played for pride. And I know the great vast majority of them are hyper competitive and don't like losing, but when you see these guys who get big money contracts and then don't perform, it just drives you it just drives you up the wall. Like, I should be on the ceiling right now. It's driving me so crazy.
And by the end of the contract, they get better again because they know they need
Yeah.
a new paycheck. That's like
So,
never-ending cycle.
yeah. I want to
Doug,
ask Maeve something. Maeve, if you would, you say when you first started watching, you went to the Rovers games and the AHL games, and the Rangers were just kind of a mystery to you. When you finally got to see the NHL Rangers play your first time, did you notice a big difference in the caliber of play?
it's a great question. I'll tell you why. When my dad and I were going to the Met League game and the Rover games back to back, it was 1:30 the Met League, 3:30 the Rovers, and it fascinated me in this sense. Ready for the players to come out on the ice for the start of the game, and everybody jumps on the ice and takes that first great skate, and I'm sure you remember that. And so I'm watching the Met Leaguers. Then comes the Rover game, and I'm fascinated by the difference because the Rovers were, these guys were actually pros. The amateur part was a joke. And I could see how much faster they were. And that told me, well, this is going to be another exciting game in its own faster way. So that was in 39, 40, 41. So finally in 1942, I begged my father to take me to a Ranger game. And one of the reasons that we didn't go was it was more expensive, and the other was that I had to go to school early the next day, and the Ranger game didn't start till 8:30 at night. But he did agree, and he took me. And never forget, I thought he was going to say no because it was downpour that afternoon and evening. Took me and my friend Jerry, and at the old garden, the cheapest seats were on the side balcony, both sides, and you couldn't see, because it was built for boxing, you couldn't see the entire rink. So if you weren't sitting in the first or the second row of the side balcony, you were up the creek, because anytime there was play along the near boards, you had to guess what was going on, or you had to have a radio, which very few guys did anyhow. So we go out there, and I can't say I was disappointed. In fact, it was a Leaf Ranger game, and I think it wound up, or maybe it was a Blackhawk game. Yeah, it was a Blackhawk game. But I was more fascinated than impressed. But the thing was, I was at an NHL game, and an NHL game was the first, and it was all an exciting situation. And of course, I didn't see my next NHL game until when I was rooting for the Leafs, which was 3 years later. I was perfectly happy with going to Sunday afternoon, perfectly happy. But then the Rovers did not lose their appeal. It was still a lot of fun because then we could see 3 games in one day. Doubleheader, go to Buey Tony for half a buck hamburgers, spaghetti and burgers, and then back to an NHL game. It was a great sequence. Hey, this is good. Wow, this is better. Wow, this is the best. 3 games in one day, 3 hockey games at the same garden. I love
I think now, though, there's a pretty big difference, meaning with player-wise when it comes to the levels, because like I played in Hershey for their junior team there, and I'd always see the Bears, the Hershey Bears practice, always. Like we'd like even share the locker rooms with them sometimes in the old Hershey arena. And like they had guys there like Moroshnachenko, like some pretty big name prospects for the Bears, Capitals. But then when they played for the Capitals, like you could just see their like level kind of go down. I don't know if it's because of confidence or something, but like when I would go to the Bears games, it would be really good. They'd be fast. They'd be on the power play all the time. They'd always, shoot more. And then when I would see them like playing the NHL game, they would just be like slower, look kind of lost. And I don't know because like actually there was some AHL games that I watched where they were actually faster than NHL games, but like in the NHL, you have to think more. Like the players have like a higher IQ, I think. And that's where I think the level difference is like in the head. Like what am I going to do the next move? Where am I going? Where am I going to set myself up? And I think that's the bigger difference is their hockey IQ with the players. When it comes to the level.
Did
Yeah,
anybody, did
motivation.
anybody you play with as a kid? Did anybody you play with make it to the show?
Me?
Yeah.
I played against guys in Switzerland that actually did make it, from Swiss players. I'd have to think of their names, but one of them I think was a Canadians prospect, but I have to look them up. But I think like one or two, and there's like a bunch that made it to the Swiss leagues, like to like SC Bern. Lane Graff made it. I played with him. Luca Moser made it to Bern. Also played with him. There's a couple. But I think like the question that you asked, I think it's just the IQ levels. Really, yeah.
I want to ask both of you. Start off with Elena. Tell me all about and the quality of the radio and the TV people. Who's the Leafs play-by-play guy?
You mean like a reporter or the one who?
You got a game on, and Leafs are playing.
Yeah, the quality is actually very good. On TV, we've got Chris Cuthbert and Greg Simpson. And on radio, Joe Bowen, he's retiring this year. And Jim Ralph. Bowen especially is legendary. Leafs fans have been listening to him for decades. Holy Mackinac!
What about Vancouver? Who's your play-by-play guy?
Vancouver, we have been so blessed by some of the greatest play-by-play guys. First, we had Jim Robson, who just recently passed away at the age of 96, and he was incredible. He did the famous 1980 Stanley Cup Final, Philadelphia and Islanders, when Bob Nystrom scored the goal. He did the play-by-play in Canada. I'm not sure if he did the United States one or not. But and then we had Jim Houston, who went on to do great things with the Blue Jays and CBC, and now we've got John Shorthouse, who another one who is just great. He's a local Vancouver guy. You know, Vancouver Canucks are his passion. He wanted to be the play-by-play guy ever since he was born, and he met. So he's doing his dream job, and he's really good at it. And they did. Him and John Garrett, former NHL goalie John Garrett, who was his color guy at the time, they did a game in the U.S. for, I can't remember, one of the U.S. networks, and they got so many compliments from the U.S. because the U.S. people had never heard them before, and then so they got a lot of compliments from the U.S. audience, and rightfully so, because he's tremendous. And he also did the radio broadcast for years, but he finally, it got to be too much, so he just does the TV games now. And Brendan Batchelor and East Indian guy does the color. I can't remember his name, but they're very good too. So we're, like I say, we've been so blessed. You know, we get some of the best play-by-play and color people ever. John Garrett was great. We had a guy named Tom Larscheid who was a color guy for years and years with Jim Robson, and he. I'll tell you a story. When the 1994 Stanley Cup Final was going on, the Canucks were playing in Game 6 at home, and late in the game, Canucks were winning, and Mark Messier cross-checked Trevor Linden from behind right into the boards, and Tom Larscheid goes, excuse my language, I'm just repeating what he said, but he said, "That's bullshit." right on the radio. So we've had some of the best, and and John Garrett was great, and now there's a couple. We got Ray Ferraro now, who does a lot of the TV coverage for the Canucks, and he's excellent. I love listening to him talk. He tells stories, and And man, yeah, it's very entertaining. And then another ex NHLer, a guy who had basically, I think, 100 games in the NHL. I can't remember his name, but he's more analytical than anything, but he gives some good points. And so yeah, we're very blessed with the play-by-play guys.
How do they handle bad games? The team. How do they handle a losing team?
Well, that's the thing. It's, John Shorthouse says his job isn't to be a Canucks cheerleader. His job is to say what he sees on the ice. Come up. There's a story playing out in front of him, and his job is just to describe what's happening. And so, you can tell he's a bit of a homer, but he doesn't go out of his way to praise or discuss even the Canucks shortcomings this year. He just does his job and does it objectively, and yeah, he doesn't. They don't. They just say basically how the Canucks played and good or bad, and that's that. It's just a basic description.
Well, we had a guy when Rangers were on radio, which was right after World War II. They were sponsored by a beer company in New York called Eichler Beer, Eichler. And Eichler Beer's theme was that it's the top, which seemed to mean that the foam or whatever it was that was going to the top of the bottle made this was a good beer. So Eichler Beer was sponsoring the Ranger game, and the Ranger play-by-play guy could never get fired because he also owned the radio station. So that was very nice. His name was Bert Lee. And Bert Lee, I loved the Rangers. And since Eichler Beer was sponsoring the Ranger games on radio, we didn't have TV, he came up with this unbelievable gimmick. Called it the Eichler Automatic Goal Judge. And here's how it worked. If the Rangers scored, he had on the radio, on the desk where he had his mic and his sidekick, Ward Wilson, there was this thing called the Eichler Automatic Goal Judge. Why was it an automatic goal judge? It wasn't automatic, but it wasn't a goal judge. But when the Rangers scored, it had 3 bicycle horns with different sounds. And the bicycle horns were playing the introduction to the great Cole Porter tune of that era, You're the Top. You're the top, not the tops, you're the top. My beach umbrella, and so on and so on. So when the Rangers scored, he'd grab these 3 horns in succession. He'd go, ba, 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 ba. That was You're the Top. And that's what we used to look forward to, this crazy thing that he called the Eichler Automatic Goal Judge. Unfortunately, after 2 years, Eichler went out of business, so did the goal judge. But that was crazy fun stuff. And Bert Lee was the ultimate homer. Bert Lee, and none of this is shootsy score stuff. This was not a New York. We didn't do any of that. That was Foster Hewitt. He was the greatest, no question about it. But Bert Lee, if the Rangers scored a goal, he would yell something like "Goal!" Not he shoots. Or it's in, whatever the hell it was. If the other team scored, you couldn't even hear him. You knew there was a goal because you couldn't hear Bert Lee. It was the ultimate. But that was we were so happy to get anything hockey in those days. And near the end, before TV, they only used to do Ranger games from 9. They'd miss the first period. But we didn't care. Anything we could get in hockey was big plus. Now it's a different story.
All corporate now, gone down the corporate drain.
We're running out of time, but Maeve has a joke about diamonds for us.
Yes, I did remember. Okay, so right across the street where the NHL office was, on 6th Avenue and 47th Street, actually 47th between 5th and 6th. It's what they call the Diamond Center. It's still the Diamond Center. And all dealings with jewels, but mostly diamonds, took place on that street. And in the middle of the block, there was a larger building, the tallest building, which was called the Diamond Center, okay? So one day, this guy walks out of the Diamond Center, and he's got a leather pouch filled with raw diamonds worth millions of dollars. Gets to the sidewalk, and as soon as he gets to the sidewalk, what do you think happens? An elephant comes along, and the elephant mugs the guy, and with his trunk, he steals the pouch full of diamonds, and the elephant goes galumphing way down to 6th Avenue, makes a right turn, and it was last seen heading toward Central Park. So naturally, they called the cops, and squad car pulls up in a couple of minutes. Cop gets out of the car, goes over to the guy. He says, so tell me what happened. What happened? He says, I got mugged by an elephant, and he stole my diamonds. He writes it down. The cop says, well, what kind of elephant was it? I said, what do you mean? It was an elephant. Cop says, don't be a wise guy. There are two kinds of elephants. There's the Indian elephant with the ears close, and there's the African elephant with the ears all the way out. So tell me, which was it? Guy says, I couldn't tell. He had a stocking over his head. What else can you get in diamonds? Nice seeing you again.
Thank you so much, Maeve, Jerry, and Ariel. And to everyone listening and watching, thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Yeah. Never switch.